I'm really excited. It's being recorded.
There you go. I hope you don't mind, Darrell.
Hey, no worries. Yeah. So, yeah, my name's Darrell Owen. I'm a founder of brand marketing agency Creation, and we are essentially an agency that puts purpose back at the heart of businesses. And once you understand who you are, it's very easy to understand who you are going to serve. So the journey that we have is that we take people on this 4-step process, but we'll get there in a minute. So essentially, we're about brands with purpose are essentially giving you a message behind the method. Often people within marketing and within branding get very hung up on the methods and the platform. And ultimately, it's not about the methods or the platform. It's about the message behind it, because that's what makes you different from everybody else. It's not the platform. Everyone uses the internet. Everyone's got email. Everyone's got a social media channel. But it's actually what you say on those channels that make you different and make you stand out in the marketplace. So brands with purpose, essentially, how do I get the message that I need that puts me above everybody else using the same methods? So next slide, please. So let's dive in. Let's go to the next one. So we're about building brands that inspire belief, create belonging, and to become best in their sector and go beyond expectations. So the best brands in the world inspire belief. Belief in oneself, but belief in what people are buying and what people are investing their time, treasure, and talent in. The belonging part is the community. And one of the things we're finding with the internet space, and particularly obviously with COVID, is there are community groups and ways to grow communities that have grown significantly using online tools. So like Zoom. So a lot of teachers before were going into classrooms and delivering teaching. They were doing some kind of webinars. But now as a business owner in this situation we find ourselves in, more and more people are educating online and making it part of what they're doing. But they're also building community groups. So that could be a Facebook group. For those of you that are in the know in tech, it could be a Clubhouse environment as well. So belonging is really key to brands now, building community, because people feel less connected, let's say in their everyday face-to-face, but now they're becoming more connected online. And that's a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. Hey, I love meeting people and seeing people face-to-face. But what I've found with this, this way of life that we live in now, I'm connecting with people that I would never have met ever across the world. The next thing is best. So when you know what you're best at, we talk about the Hollywood narrative. And if you've ever been to Hollywood, they've got stars on the floor. And when you see a Hollywood star on the floor, the great thing about that is as soon as you see that star, you know what that person was famous for. I don't know why, but when I teach it, I just keep thinking J.R. Ewing. But yeah, and basically the point of it is when you see that square, it's like, I know. If Mark Hamill, Star Wars, straight away, you just know. And that's what really your brand should be. When I see that star, when I see your value proposition, I know what company we're talking about. And then ultimately, it's the beyond part, which is, what are you going to do? Brands have to be nowadays more cause focused. And we'll talk about that in a bit later. So next slide, please. So there are the 4 pillars. We're going to go through them today. So we'll stop at the end of each section so we can have Q&A. Go again, next slide. So belief is understanding who you really are. So often we don't take enough time as business owners, CEOs, entrepreneurs to understand who we really are. We have an idea, we run with it, we execute quickly, we get stuff done, and maybe 3 to 5 years down the line, when you look back of what you've built, there's almost this, hang on a minute, this is not looking exactly like how I envisioned it. Now, the point is, yes, we're on a journey, so you're not going to get there in 3 years, it's going to take time. But the challenge that you have is you say, well, hang on a minute, am I being true to why I started this company up in the first place? And often we make decisions based on circumstance rather than based on conviction. And so what we do here is help you put conviction back in your business, whereas you're doing what is true to you as a person. And where we're finding with CEOs and entrepreneurs and business owners when they're running between 3 and 5 years is there is what we call mission drift. So if you took 2 parallel lines and then one was just 1 degree out and you continue to draw them on a piece of paper, they would get further and further apart. So what we're about, first of all, is creating alignment. Let's bring the original idea back into alignment with your with your company and where it's heading. And I learned this where I had a workshop with 28 people in. It was going really good. And then by the end of the workshop, I think we had the whole company in, which was nuts. But they were all saying, this is the way we want to see a business, this is the way we want to run it. And at the time, I call it intuition. I decided to take the CEO out for lunch afterwards, a couple of days after that, and ask him the similar questions. And what I began to find is that the CEO and the business owner's idea of what he wanted and how everybody else saw it was completely different. So I really began to realize this alignment issue was quite a big challenge. And so needless to say, we then fixed that problem, and all of a sudden there was almost there was a lot of, there was more retention within the business. There was more clarity. People knew where they stood. They could attract more people to join the team. And ultimately that business succeeded in the fact that its end game was to sell out, and they actually did. And now they're part of a much bigger company. So let's go to the next slide. Now, mission, vision, and values. And there's a lot talked about this. And I often find people get really confused between what a mission is, what a vision is, and what values are. Values are a lot clearer, but we'll go back there. But mission essentially is who you are, why you exist, the purpose. So, for instance, NASA exists to explore space, but their vision is that they want to land on the moon. Their new vision is, let's say, we want to land on Mars. So a vision can almost slightly grow bigger, so it can move, but it grows, it gets bigger. So if your vision is to be the #1 company in the UK, you can then be the #1 company in Europe and beyond. So on that basis, you can then begin to grow. So, a vision is the end game, it's the end goal for now, maybe 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. But the mission is why you started this company in the first place. And when you get those two things right, the vision may scale and change and alter, but the mission will stay the same, because why you exist should stay the same. And then the values in the middle are the very thing that help us make the right decisions. So values can be described as behaviors. And ultimately, values are whereby I can reward someone in my team with values, and I can discipline them with values. Now, they both work really well. It takes the personality or the personal issues, where people say, oh, it's not personal. Well, it's about values, because we're guarding the values. That's what we're about first and foremost. So values are great when you've got them down and you're actually using them to recruit by. We can train skill, we can hone talent, but really you can have many different personality types. But if you hold the same values, therefore you have unity. And unity is a powerful thing, when it comes to sport and many other things. Next slide, please. So a mission statement, and I'm only going to touch on this lightly because I'm giving you a ton of value today. I'm just going to try and get as much to you as possible. But a mission statement is, we often teach around the thing of a cause to action. So most people say, what's the CTA? What's the call to action? And we say, we're not interested in the call to action. We're interested in the cause to action. When you understand a little bit about the different generations that play, particularly the millennial generation, they're very interested in cause. Sorry, I've just seen someone, Emma Beeson. Hi, I'm giving you a shout out. I used to work with Emma many years ago, and she worked in the agency that I left. So cool to see you. The cause statement essentially is saying, well, why do we exist and what cause are we going to affect? So for millennials, causes is where they're making their decisions. People will leave companies. A millennial will leave a company not because of money. They'll leave it because the cause is not being followed. They feel like they're selling their soul out to something and not getting anything back. So the way we break down a cause statement is the C is what call. How are you going to answer? So are you going to think? Are you going to lead? Are you going to help? The A is your ability. So what are you known for? So, for us, we want to use our talents, and it's the media that's our ability. That's essentially our superpower. So what is your superpower? The U is utilization. So what do you do with that superpower? Well, obviously, we know we're great in media, but we use to create. So we are creative and we create. The utilization, that what we do with our gift, our superpower, is that we create stuff. We make the magic happen, if that makes sense. The S is the solution. So what do we leave behind when we do this really well? Well, ultimately, we want to impact communities. And then lastly, where do we want to do this? Well, globally. And I remember when I sort of like write this out, and I was thinking, globally just sounds so big. You know, the world seems so huge, but look what's happened in the last, 2 years. The global space, by us being connected online, is so much stronger and so much easier to get reach. And as I said, for those of you that are interested in technology and not on Clubhouse, get an invite from someone, because I've ended up connecting with people in the US, people I never ever would have dreamed of connecting through Clubhouse. And it's an app based on voice only, and you just meet people from all over the world. And it's amazing. If you go into the rooms that are your interest group, you'll meet like-minded people. So now I'm reaching globally without even trying, let's say. So Creation's mission statement is using the media to create community impact globally. That's why we exist. We take our tools and our talents and our treasure, and we create wonderful things. We create community impact based on the activities that company is actually doing. But we also create impact by being successful ourselves and being able to contribute into other causes and charities. You see, if we're making a lot of money out of established brands or whatever, we are able to help those people that are less fortunate, like charities that don't have necessarily the spend, to begin to help them to fulfill their cause. So that's our mission. This is why we exist. We want to create community impact. So the next one is your vision. And this is where I want to talk about the end game. The end game in terms of the vision is you need to establish what your leading position is. For us, we want to be world class. That's our leading position. For you, it might be number one. It might be the best, but you know what best means to you. The uniqueness. So we are a sustainable creative agency. What does that mean? Well, inherent to our business are the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. One of them being goal number 3, which is good health and well-being. And so our team run a 4-day work week. So we work 4 days a week on 1 week and have a Friday off as a team. And on the second week, the Friday is an R&D day. That's unheard of in the creative world. Just if you ever worked in the creative world, you work in 18-hour days, trying to get the deadline done and whatever. But we make sure we attract clients that can work that way with us to enable us to be better husbands, be better fathers, be better sons, and whatever else. Because here's the thing, again, I'm a Gen X, by the way, only just, but being in the Gen X world, I've seen Gen Xers work themselves to death at the expense of their family. So I made a decision fairly early on when we took the business out of the charity to say, I don't want to replicate that with my family. And it took me long enough to find someone to marry me. I don't want to mess that up. So the reality is that when you put these 70 sustainable goals and pick maybe 2 or 3 within your business, you help build a business that is better for not just you, but better for everyone. So we are a sustainable creative agency, and we work with brands and companies that want to put those goals into their business. We put a number on it, which is growth. So we want to help 100,000 CEOs. We've got a lot of people on here, so that's a big tick against us getting closer to that number. But the point of it is that put a number to how many people you want to reach. And then you can work backwards. Then you know how many people you need to do now and how many people you need to get to in year 5. And it allows you to give a number to hit. Create purposeful brands. Again, what makes us different is that we're about putting purpose at the heart of a business. First, starting with the CEO and creating alignment to the business and to their cause. Now, that person who has that purpose and the business that is lined effectively, when they decide to leave or they get old and they decide to retire, they've built the business in such a way using these 4 pillars that they can leave, but the mission is still executed. Now, I was reading a stat the other day that 80% of businesses that are trying to be sold now will never be sold because effectively they're not a business. They're an expenses account and there's nothing to hand over. There's no brand. And some of the symptoms of a company not having a brand is where staff are leaving on a regular basis because they're just not buying into what's there. So if you want to sell your business in 5 years, you've got to have a strong, purposeful driven brand because the people that are buying it are already asking those types of questions. And then the last thing, what is the result? Give people legacy. And that's what we're about. We want to give the companies that we work with a legacy that they're proud of. So we're not going to be working with cigarette companies. That's just not us. But we're going to give people that, like schools that we work with, charities that we work with, sports companies that we work with, education companies that we work with. we want to give them the ability to say, you know what, we can actually help the people that we're trying to serve in the best possible way. And one of the things that we found out when we did an audit of all our clients, we've attracted so many clients that service entrepreneurs. You know, we work with investment companies that are servicing entrepreneurs. We work with financial planners that are serving entrepreneurs. You know, we're working with those because ultimately entrepreneurs, and in times like these, is where, you know, when it's tough, the entrepreneurs rise up and they help a nation essentially bounce back by being creative, being innovative, and that's what we need right now. So that's the vision. And then the last one is the values. Now, we've got as a company, we've got a values statement, and sometimes a value statement takes longer to craft. And you know, for you guys, I just want to help you. So you know, a values list, it's acceptable, it works. Our value statement is brands with purpose that empower people to create a better planet. That's what we're about, and that takes a little bit of time to hone. So if you want to craft your values and make sure that they're used properly, then just come up with a values list. Think of a name and do an acronym whereby each one. So this is New Life. They're one of the businesses on the entrepreneurship program, and we just came up with some values that fitted against their activities. And remember, you know, think about making them about behaviors as well, so they're actually active and actually used. But essentially, when you do this, the values are the very thing that you can put at the heart of your business, and not just be sticking them on the wall and saying, oh yeah, they look really nice when you walk through the reception, but that's all they're used for. No, your reviews. So when you're reviewing with your team, review it around values. When you're in an interview, focus on values, because the person that's come to your interview has probably got the skills and abilities, particularly if you're using a decent recruitment agency, let's say. The chances are the CVs that come in are people that know what they're doing, or the recommendations you've got, they know what they're doing. But you need to know that they fit values, not necessarily your mission and vision. It's values first. They can buy into the mission and vision and value, because here's the thing. If they're values driven, your mission and vision will make absolute sense to them anyway, because it's all joined together. But make your decisions based on values, because, you know, as I said, there are many personality types out there. There's the strong and powerful one. There's the quiet ones. There's the networkers, the movers and the shakers. You need different people across across an organization. And as you grow, you need to make sure that they all hold the same sorts of values. Therefore, then you can move forward in unity. So next slide. So we can stop there. Does anyone have any questions, or we can move on?
Just as a reminder, if anyone wants to ask a question, you can use the Q&A function or raise your hand. We've got one raised hand, Stephen Moffat. So I'm just going to hand the mic to you, Stephen. Stephen.
Hi, can you hear me? Sorry, really interested to hear about how you're focusing around collecting teams and building teams around a single source of value metrics, but surely really successful and large companies find ways to make people of different values and different motivations pull together and form together. You're ending up with a kind of echo chamber within a small team like that?
I would say that when you have a common set of values, yeah, everybody's got their own values, but everyone needs to have their own set of values for their own life. But a company in itself needs to have values across the board. So if one of the values is innovation, then everyone can play in and plug into that space of innovation. And when people are saying, well, why are we doing R&D, for example? You say, well, we value innovation. That's why we put it at the heart of our business. It helps you explain some of the decisions you're making, maybe at the top. You know, I don't totally believe in the whole hierarchy structure. I'm becoming more sort of like linear as things go and having experts in certain areas. But the reality is that when you know what your values are, it's a lot easier to make decisions. You know, and listen, you know, I'm here to advise. I'm not here to ram things down people's throat. I know what works. I know what works for us, and I know it's worked for a lot of the companies we work with. You know, some of these companies don't have that sort of stuff in place. Certainly for a much larger corporate company, I believe, having done a lot of freelance work, values get lost very quickly. They are the typical, their values are on the wall, but they don't go much further than that.
Okay, thanks, but yeah.
Okay, we good?
Yep, that's Steve. Any other questions for Darrell? No, nothing at this point, Darrell. Over back to you.
Yeah, I just saw a list about, a company about supplies and products. So I just touch on that. We will get to it, but a lot of the larger corporates now are putting the 17 sustainable goals at the heart of their business. So essentially, let's say a company, a large manufacturing company, and they've put the 70 sustainable goals in their business, but the first thing they've addressed their business with is, has their supply chain got these 70 sustainable goals in? So the way they're saying they are now bringing their company more in alignment with the UN 70 sustainable goals are that the companies or the suppliers that they have, they prescribe to them. So it cleans up their supply list. So if you want to work with larger corporate companies that understand 17 sustainable goals, then all of a sudden, that's what these larger companies are looking for. And we were working with quite a large company that they were doing some of the activities, but they didn't frame it as such as a 17 sustainable goal. So one of their goals was plastics in ocean, and we brought it into line. We put that in their presentation. So we weren't, greenwashing. We were saying, look, you just need to tell them it's this way. They did a vision presentation to a client that had been there for 5 years, and they were looking to sign another 5-year contract. But because they understood the UN 17 sustainable goals, that huge company signed another 5-year deal with them, because they said 3 of the SDGs that were in that presentation are part of their 5. So people now are making decisions around SDGs from a supplier point of view. And again, you won't put the SDGs in your business if you haven't got a really strong sense of values. So let's go on to belong. So belong is about understanding who your who is. So often we say, well, who's your audience? And everyone goes, oh, it's everyone. And you're like, well, you haven't got enough, how do I put it? You haven't got enough spending budget to reach everybody on the planet. So it's better to niche down. Now, don't go so niche that effectively, if your whole business was built around hospitality, I think now you'll look at that as one of the other areas. You'll look to diversify a bit. But the point is, you still need to be known for the type of people that you want to work with and want to serve. So let's go to the next slide. So we've got this little metrics here. You can take a picture and bring it out. But we've got this purpose, this unique purpose that goes around the middle of the circle. And the way I look at it is this: there is a circle that we all have. And there's an inner circle and there's an outer circle. And particularly when you run business, you need this circle. That's your unique purpose, why your business exists. So it relates back to your mission statement. So let's say your unique purpose is educating children. That's what it is. But what you need to then have is people around you that kind of hold you account to what your unique purpose is. So if we flick over the page, next, please. So your inner circle. So what we've done here is you're saying, well, you need to find 5 people in your life that keep you accountable to, say, teaching children, for example. So there's the fun. Now, the fun are people that you like, people that you get on with, people that could be your best friend. It's someone that you know that's got your back, not just about business, but your well-being. They're the sort of person who go, hey, you look absolutely tired. You need to take a day off, for example. The second person we say you should have in your life is the finger. And the finger is about direction. It's about pointing people in the right direction. So who do you know that in your field has seen what's coming up, or who do you know in your network that's always bringing new stuff to the table, for instance, Clubhouse or the next network that could help give them more reach? So who is that person? The third person, which is your middle finger, it's not about telling people to get stuff, by the way. Your middle finger is the longest finger that you have. So who is the person that maybe has got a bit more of a marketing tilt about reach? They're very well connected. They're an expert networker that could refer you or connect you to other people. Now, that can be a person, and normally it is, but they could be connected to an organization, for example. The fourth one is your ring finger, which is your accountability. And that could be your husband, that could be your wife, it could be your life partner, it could be a brother and sister, or even your mum and dad, but someone that keeps you account. And then the fifth one, which is your pinky, which is the finger closest to the ground. And ultimately, those are the people that I always suggest you have someone in your life maybe 10, 15, 20 years older than you. Someone that's been around the block, been in business a while, been there, seen it, done it. Don't get involved in the war of generations. Every generation has got something to say. So whether you're a baby boomer or whether you're a millennial, or whether you're a Gen X, Everyone's got something to say, and you can really, really benefit by having someone older in your life. So the purpose of these 5 people then is to keep you accountable to that unique purpose. So let's say you built the whole business around teaching children, and that's where your sweet spot is. They're going to keep reminding you that's why you exist. So you say, well, I'm writing a book. Yeah, but is that book now educating children? Because that's what the unique purpose is. So it's just someone that can keep you on focus, because when you have a measure of success, very quickly you can get distracted and end up doing a million different things. And the very thing that you were supposed to be famous for, you're not so famous for again, because you're doing so many different things. And it comes by making small decisions over a period of time. And if you talk about the alignment piece, you end up a million miles from where you actually want to go. So for a successful business, a purpose-driven business needs to have these 5 people in your life to make sure they're accountable to the unique purpose. They can also become an advisory group or an advisory board. You don't have to give them a directorship or whatever, but they can be the people that you can bounce ideas off of. And when we're out of lockdown, you can bring them all together and maybe have conversations and dinners about how you might take your business forward. So that's the inner circle. So next slide, please. So the next one then would be, let's look at the outer circle. And so the outer circle really allows us to build avatars. And I'm sure some of the other branding guys will talk about this in detail. But where I'm trying to get to is that you need to understand the people that you serve in detail. So demographics is a good one. It's to do with age, it's to do with education, what job roles they have, are they a family, are they single, how does that work? And location. So think about, when you think of demographics, the broadest reach of the people that you can help and what they look like. The next thing would be, what are their goals in life? So some of them might be that they want to own a property, or they might want to travel more. So understand what your goals of your clients or potential clients actually want. The next one would be interest. So what they're interested in. Do they watch Netflix? Do they participate in sport? Do they love reading? So it's understanding what interests they have. Because, for instance, if you know that they love reading, maybe one of the things you offer them is like a book subscription or a book voucher. So sometimes you can add extra value based on their interests, because you know you're speaking to your audience. The next one would be motivation. So what are their motives? What are their deep down things that really motivate them? And one of them might be being financially free, or they want to live in the present because they're so busy. So all of a sudden, those things begin to help you there. And then the last thing is the frustration part. So what are they frustrated with? They might hate high street shopping. They might struggle with, they find it hard to be original. So what is it? What are their frustrations? It might be lack of finance, that sort of stuff. And then you begin to speak to them. So you speak to their pain and then show them a way out of their problem. And therefore then you're saying, look, we exist to do this, but we also have taken the time to understand you. And the more you spend talking to your audience, the more you're going to understand how they operate, how they think, ask questions. With Messenger and Facebook and all these other things, you can talk to your audience quite a lot. Some of you, your audience may even be an extension of your friendship circle. And when you're thinking of avatars, you're thinking, oh yeah, that's like my best friend so-and-so, because you know how they operate and how they make decisions. You just want more people like that to sell your products and services. So that's the outer circle. We flick on again. Very quickly, I'm just trying to add as much value as I can, but the flywheel. A flywheel is a repeatable, scalable journey that you can take your clients on. We recommend that businesses find 5 key areas to their business and structure their business accordingly. So we've picked 5 key areas here for you. It could be the core product. Community now is big. Media, so it could be your videos, that sort of stuff. Training is becoming really big in any business now. And then if you want to do merchandise. Now those 5 can be other things, but if you write down all the activities that you do on Post-its and group them together under these 5 headings, you'll get common streams and common themes. That essentially really helps you put a really strong website navigation together of the type of things that you offer. What the flywheel does, it says, how do I handle data that comes to my website, and it's repeatable and sustainable for the entire company. So when someone comes in, they can see how it works. Now this is quite a low-level flywheel. So we're saying, do a Q&A audit on the website. I give them a report. I do a consult one-to-one on Zoom. I then send them a proposal. They sign up. There's an onboarding process. We deliver the ongoing project. We then train, equip, and support them and empower them wherever we can. And then we review, rate, and get them to share. So then we get referrals so someone else can do the audit. So that's a wheel. Now, flywheels can be much bigger than that. Amazon use the same flywheel they did for their shopping as they do for their servers. It's just repeatable, sustainable, generic things that people can follow across the business. So even if we were doing different products, we would say we follow the same process of how we deliver that. So that's a flywheel for you. Next slide, please. And then just this is something that something that I really do buy into, because I've worked, a lot of my team are from Generation Y, and it's understanding how the generations work. And there's a load of stuff out there, generational psychology that you can do, but often we make decisions based on behaviors and things like that. But it's also good to understand that different generations have been educated differently, and the way of processing information and the way of dealing and handling information is very different. As I said to you before, if you're a Gen X person, it's probably going to be about status, brands, and luxury, because they've grown up in that. And then they come to a point where maybe they're looking for a bit more meaning. That's a bit like me. Generation Y, they're all about experience. They're all about travel, flagships. They're about causes. So make sure that majority of the workforce are Gen X, Gen Y. Gen Y are now becoming key decision makers in business now. So you need to understand how they work. And I know many of you here are Gen Y. But if you want people to invest in you, it might be a Gen X. So you need to understand what their motivations are and what they want out of life, rather than saying, no, you need to conform to me. And I think when you understand how the different generations work, you'll create less friction in your life, because they have a different worldview. Now, thankfully, and hopefully you'll have the right people that are open to suggestions and open to different ways of doing things. But, you can't, people do things differently. There was this school of thought that, you do one task at one time, you get it done. And then there was this whole thing of multitasking. And now it's come back round in a circle. And now it's like, do one thing at one time. And so things do change and things do transcend generations. But the reality of the situation is understanding the generations is a really good way of connecting with the audience you're trying to serve. So next slide. Any questions?
Hi, Darrell. I've just got one that's come through on the chat. Just a quick question about the flywheel. Is it the same as a customer journey?
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, 100%. It's a customer journey, but it's a bit deeper than just a customer journey. It can be an operational journey as well. So you can see it as everyone. Yeah, I would say it's similar to a customer journey. Yeah, but as you build that flywheel out more, it might be like different divisions. So it's not as granular or as low level as just a customer journey. Certainly, if your business 3 to 5 years, you might just do the customer journey to start off with. But as your company grows, it might be different journeys. So one team hands off to this team, to that team, or whatever. So yeah.
Thank you. And I just had a question and a shout out to our attendees as well. If you do have any questions, as I said earlier, if you pop them in the Q&A or put them in the chat, or indeed raise your hand, and I'll hand the mic over to you. Darrell, just a question there. You mentioned about sort of the importance of talking to your audience and using feedback from them. How do you go about actually engaging with your audience in a way that gets the most authentic responses from them?
So one of the biggest power tools I'm finding now is to creating Facebook groups and asking questions to the group directly. A quick way to do that is running things like Facebook challenges. If you've never heard of them, what they do is you build a group of people, and then you run a challenge where you can add as much value as possible to that group of people. And then what you're left with at the end of that challenge, yes, you could maybe upsell them to a product, but you're left with a community. We ran a challenge just recently on the behalf of a craft organization. They've got 500 people now in a Facebook group, and they're asking them questions regularly about how to develop products and their, and the, what they need help with, what's their biggest struggles. It's just like just an amazing resource now for actually getting to know their clients and their resource. So yeah, that's where you can do the old-fashioned way. Think about your friendship circle, go through your phone, your address book, and think, hang on a minute, how many of these people that I know in my phone book are like the people that I want to reach, and just pick up the phone. I know that a phone conversation with someone can give you some amazing insights. So that's how you do it on, on the macro level and on the micro level.
Brilliant. Thank you, Darrell. I've just had a question come through from Bethan Walker saying, is it possible to have the name of the group so that we can view an example group?
Yeah, this group is called the Craft Challenge. So you just search for it. It's called the Craft Challenge. They're a company called Craft Insurance. You can go in there and join their group, and then you can have a look and see how they all interact. But yeah, it's really good. But some of the big guys now are starting to do challenges. The guy that taught me about them, he taught Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins had 330,000 people in a Facebook challenge. So yeah, they can be big and they can go to scale. But you know, it is a great way of speaking to your audience.
Brilliant. Thank you, Darrell. There's no other questions come through, so back to you.
Okay, so best. How do you attract the very best attention? So you know what? We talked about the Hollywood star. So if we go to the next slide. This is just a very quick and easy way to create a value proposition that kind of gets you thinking about how you structure and tell that story. A value proposition is what's in it for me. So I'm famous for. So a brand in essence is what other people are saying about your brand rather than what you're telling everybody what it's about. Yes, it's right to have mission, vision, and values and all those things we've talked about. But the value proposition is really a great way of saying what's in it for me. So, you know, most companies say what the product is, and then they say what the problem they solve is. So let's, for example, let's use the magic pill solves tiredness. But then the next level is the magic pill solves tiredness for teenagers. So now you've got the product service, you've got the problem people. And what we do is you work it out and go deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to the last sentence. So you go, the magic pill solves tiredness for teenagers using this pill and drink. You know, the magic pill solves this problem for teenagers with this pill and drink and makes you run all day. And then it's got the magic pill solves tiredness for teenagers using the pill and the drink that makes them run all day within 20 minutes. So when you craft that out, it's very clear now what I get as a result of buying into your brand. And essentially, that's a very simple way of crafting a value proposition. And once you've got that, you can change the words around or whatever. But in essence, it needs to say something similar. So, you know, that's about making yourself famous. We click to the next one. I use this thing when to establish your best is to use the Hollywood narrative. Now, I don't know if many of you are Marvel fans, but once you understand this formula, I'm probably going to ruin most Hollywood movies for you. There is a formula that they use over and over again, and they are essentially they're of 8 areas, and I'll take you through. There's characters, so the characters get established. It's like the hero in your story. There's a common goal that the hero and the characters want to achieve. There then comes an adversary, and sometimes that adversary can be a person, but that adversary could be a pain point, a situation. Then you put a plan in place, and then you have victory. If you just flip over one more for me, next slide. The 5, 6, 7 of this journey are the attempts and failures that they've already done are really valid. The regrouping, and the new plan, same goal. So I just tell you a Hollywood story, you'll get a feel for it. So let's say the Avengers get together, their common goal is to look after planet Earth. Then comes Thanos, the plan they put in place to take Thanos out, and then it all goes wrong, it all goes lost, people disappear. Then there becomes a new plan, maybe we can reverse time, and they all get together, they pivot, and then they put the new plan in place and they have victory. And so basically, when you're crafting a narrative, when you're crafting a story, you can take someone in your client portfolio and take them on that Hollywood story and that Hollywood journey and tell that story. They came to us, they didn't have a brand, they really wanted to be number one in the marketplace, but it just seemed that they couldn't speak to the right people, and they were getting loads of complaints. So we put a plan in place, and we tried it ourselves. It didn't go so well. Then we got to know the company that we were working with, so we regrouped with them. We come up with a new plan. We dealt with all the complaints and put customer service as our first thing that we do. And we communicate that through brand stories and advocacy, and we reward referrals. And then guess what? There's victory. So now, all of a sudden, you can say the victory is our business has grown tenfold. So when you tell that Hollywood narrative, that Hollywood story, very quickly everyone begins to understand the benefit of what they get out of you. So testimonials work when they deal with objections, and this 5, 6, and 7 are the objections that people face, the stuff that the people are going through. That, you know, we didn't have enough money, but when we regrouped, they come up with a plan and said, no, you don't need to spend thousands on Facebook. Have you thought about doing this? And so you can tell that story in your journey, and therefore then craft a winning testimonial. So essentially, that is your Hollywood story. So, you know, if you just flick back for me. So that, yeah, just for everybody there, take a picture of it. But you'll see this formula in every movie. So when you're watching a movie and you look at your watch and you go, this movie's got 40 minutes to go, you know it's going to go wrong. But there's time for them to either redeem, or like the Avengers, we create another one, a sequel. But essentially, when they were mapping this whole journey out, Marvel, this was the narrative that they had planned. Success, failure, new plans, pivots, and eventually the whole world gets saved. And then we do it again, and then we do it again. So if you can move on to the next. Any questions? I know I've got 10 minutes left, so I'm just pushing through.
Oh, we have got a little bit of extra time as well, so if you do want to take time with that, that's all good. A couple of people are a little bit concerned that you might give away the ending to the Avengers movie there. Spoiler alert, a few of them haven't seen it. So Andy, we haven't ruined it for you there, I hope.
Yeah, so any questions? Anybody can help?
No, I think most of the questions coming through at the moment, Darrell, are just sort of, is it being recorded, and can we get our hands on the slides, because there's so much content that I think everyone's just trying to absorb it at the same time.
Yeah, I appreciate there's a lot of content there, but hey, I want to give value, and if one of those things stick, then happy days.
So as I said, just one more shout out. If anyone has any questions, put them in the Q&A or pop them in the chat or raise your hand. That's it. Thank you, Darrell. Back to you, mate.
Okay, so this is the beyond piece, and this is what we're saying. This is what.
Sorry, Darrell, just had one late one come through before we jump into that. Sonia has said, is the process that you've just talked through the same as relaunching a brand?
Yeah, I agree. Yes, it is, and the reason why we do that is because, again, often where brands start to fail is they drift from their original purpose, the original ideals. So the vision may have got fuzzy, but ultimately it's putting the reason why that company started in the first place front and center. Once you fix that, it restores a sense of, you know, urgency, drive, passion within the CEO and the leadership team, let's say, and therefore then the team have got something to buy into, because often the symptoms are, you know, leads dry up, people within the team begin to leave and move on. And then as a result, then you can see, hang on a minute, we've got this brand, but we're actually anything but what that brand says. And it's a case of reinvention. It might just be getting clearer on the vision, but the mission will always be the same. And that's what I'm trying to get to today, is that the issue often isn't like, let's just smash everything up and start again. No, the issue is alignment. The CEO, the leader, whoever, still had that vision, still saw that opportunity. There might be a different way of executing it. Like, you know, once you land on the moon, let's go and hit Mars, for example, you know, but we might not want to go to Mars. We want to go even further. But the point is that, you know, once you bring that alignment, it brings the clarity. And what we say is that when you've got clarity, it creates currency. So that's the issue. Often where currency begins to dry up, there is no clarity. And that's what we're about. We help you get the clarity that you need.
Thank you, Darrell. And as a follow-up to that, Sonia's also said, how do you achieve that without confusing existing customers whilst also targeting new customers? So
I think sometimes you could be honest to your clients. You can be a bit vulnerable to them. I mean, you could do, I'm not saying you do it as some of your bigger clients, you can actually talk to them, like pick the phone up or have a Zoom with them or whatever, and just say, look, you know what, we've made a lot of decisions over the last few years, but we're just recollaborating, we're resetting, we're refocused. Now, any company that's been in business gets that and understands that. Almost go back to the blueprint that they originally had and say, well, we were building this way, but we realized we've gone in different ways, and we've done a lot of new stuff, but maybe that's becoming our R&D arm. So you can say, well, we'll put R&D in place. I mean, we'll touch about it in a minute, but some of those projects you can put under R&D and say, well, it's not core to the business, but it's coming in the future. So that then stops the confusion. Innovation has its place, but give it a name.
Thank you, Darrell. Back to you.
All right, so let's click on Beyond. So we'll go to the next slide. Beyond is about how you essentially woo that attention for the long term. Some of you have heard of vision boards. We believe in them. I've got a vision board on my phone, and it's amazing how some of the stuff has happened. So here's a tip. Get an A4 sheet of paper, fold it up. So you've got 8 segments, so fold it twice, cut some pictures, stick them on based on your vision of where you want to head. So what it looks like. We call it the law of attraction. Some of you are aware of it. Then take a picture of that A4 sheet of paper and then put it as your wallpaper on your phone. You will be amazed how being a wallpaper on your phone, it's the thing you probably look at the most, begins to shape some of the decisions that you make positively, because it's a constant reminder of what you're about. So we've just got 8 areas that can help you here. The first one is your personal goals. Have a business personal goal. That might be that you decide you want to do a power MBA, for example. The impact could be the number of people that you want to reach. Some people put turnover, but I'd rather measure impact. Number 3 is the environment. So you might want to end up having your own building, your own premises, a chain of shops. What does that look like? Or you might want to refurb them all. Number 4, R&D. Make sure you have R&D in your business somewhere. R&D is that app project that you have. R&D is that machine learning AI thing that you have. The government gives money back through R&D tax credits. Speak to your accountant about it. But putting R&D at the heart of your business is an amazing thing, because there may be some activities that you've been doing in terms of business development and never saw it as R&D, and actually it was, and you can actually claim money against that and put R&D at the heart of your business. One of the things with R&D is to structure it in such a way, which was Logitech used this principle, is trees, plants, and seeds. So trees are your existing business. Plants are your business in the next 3 to 5 years, or stuff that you can improve on and take your business further forward. But ultimately, you'll replace the tree because it's old-fashioned and out of date, those methods. And then the seeds are essentially the innovation, as we talked about, those new markets, the diversification, the app model, the education model that you're saying, well, it's going to take me 2 or 3 years to do, but we want to invest some time into do it. So make sure you have an R&D project in your business. Number 5 is 17 sustainable goals. We'll have a look at those in a minute now. I just show a slide. Number 6 is, who's your dream team? We had someone join our team through Yammer Yammer Yammer. Those people that know what I mean about Yammer 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 online, they were literally saying, I want to work for a company that's da 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 da. I knew that person. They were almost in the back of my head saying she'd be great on my team, and she was actually asking us to join our team. So she effectively joined, and yeah, she's part of the dream team, which is great. Number 7 is the give back. So think about ways that you can give back. It can be financially, it can be time. One of our clients does a soup run every week in Bristol. That's the way he's giving back. So yeah, you can give it your time, your treasure, or your talent, but make sure you've got giving back at the heart of your business and inspire some of your team to participate. And then number 8 is, what's the celebration? What if you achieve your goals as a business? What could you put on the wall for all your team to do? So when we started, our dream at the time was just going on an away day for a couple of days, in a month, just to explore the business and how we're getting on, but then also have fun together. And we achieved that. So now we've got a much bigger vision that we're planning. We want to go away as a team. We haven't decided where yet, because obviously the situation we're in, but we just want to take everybody away. And the goal would be not only the staff, but their families as well. So that's a big goal, but that's a big vision, and that's what we're about. Next slide, please. So there's the sustainable goals. Now you can Google this. It's free information. It's out there. There are 17 of them. You can search online, but just putting maybe 3 within your business. You're not going to get someone from the UN knocking on your door, but it's just a point of you're putting these things in place in your business to say we're not only for profit, we're for purpose. That's the key thing here, is profit and purpose. So, you know, as I said, good health and well-being is goal number 3 for us. We're really big on that, and because of the 4-day work week, we actually got a lot of traction. We didn't do it for that reason. I didn't say let's stop it. Now I got all the radio coverage, but it's a point is sometimes when you put good stuff at the heart of your business, it does create some, you know, good attention. So there's that. There's things like innovation, infrastructure within the industry, affordable clean energy. Some of those will float your boat. One of the accountants we're working with, they've got life below water, so they've now signed a deal with Surfers Against Sewerage, and they're contributing some significant funds to that cause. So everyone's got a cause. You might not be able to do it yourself, so find some organisations and partners that could actually make that happen. So yeah, pick 3. That's my challenge for you today. Next. B Corp. Some people know what this is. Other people don't know what this is. But B Corps are essentially is the fair trade for business. So if you buy decent coffee and it's got a fair trade logo, you know that you can drink coffee. You can get completely wired, but you're not harming people as a result of it. You might be with your behaviour because you're so wired, but that's another story. But the point of it is this: B Corp is a way of putting your business on your website or on your comms to say, I am a business that is for purpose and for profit, and this is recognised. Now you can go to the B Corp website. You can answer 200 questions. They will give you a score out of 200. Anything over 80. You can then submit the documentation necessary, and then you can get awarded a B Corporation certificate. It does take a long time. We've been doing it for about 9 months now, and we're about a month away from submitting our final stuff to get the score where we need it to be to take it to the next level. But it's definitely, I would say, within the next 6 months, you'll see the B Corp logo on creation stuff. So there's that one. And then if you click again, and a big thank you. Ultimately, you know, if you have these 4 pillars in your business, the belief part, which is understanding who you are, the belonging part, understanding who your audience is, the best part being really clear on not only what you're best at, but also your customers saying that story as well. And then the last one is the beyond piece, by having all the necessary documentation to say I'm for profit, but I'm also for purpose, and make sure purpose is before profit. You see, if you just keep chasing, if you chase money at the expense of mission, you're going to end up in a mess. But if you chase mission, it will attract money and give you momentum. So based on that, you know, I want to thank you for your time. I know I've given you a lot of information today. I'm open for some more questions, but I hope I've been of service and of value.
Thank you, Darrell. We've got a couple of questions through. I'm just going to hand over to Stephen Moffat, who has another question. So I'm just going to ask to unmute. Stephen, over to you. Maybe not. Stephen, if we can get that working.
Sorry, you got me now?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So I was just saying thanks. Really great for you to share your key principles and your terminology for shaping the models and foundations of things. Really, really appreciate that. We're just starting the B Corp certification. I'd be really interested in knowing what are the key points that moved that forward for you, and any big gotchas in the process of going through that corporation process. Secondly, did you assign one person to target the B Corp, or did you do it as a collective?
So it's a really, really good question. Thank you. Basically, we did as much as we could on our own to start off with. And then we were put in touch with a wonderful guy. He's connected to, you know, he's been doing some stuff with NatWest called Andy Hawkins. I'm sure one of the guys from Bristol would be able to put you in touch, or I can put you in touch. He's essentially like an ambassador. He's a champion, a B Corp champion, and he's been assisting us to make sure that we've got all the things in place, and tells us, look, to get your score up here, you need just make sure you need to have these policies. And he has these policies in place and shows us how to implement them in the business to get our score up and say, yeah, we're actually doing it. So we did as much as we could with the questionnaire ourselves. Then we got Andy, who gave us the steer. And then when we were looking at suppliers, for example, like we do a lot of stuff with servers and stuff, we then got our digital team, we just got them to focus on that one area and said, look, can you tell us about these server people? what's their background, what's their commitment to X, Y, and Z. So we already had the questions, and then my team could go and speak to those organizations and find out. Because again, it's about supply chain just as much as what you're doing internally.
Thank you very much.
Just got for you, Stephen. We've just had a couple. There's some chat in the chat function offering sort of introductions based on their experience as B Corp ambassadors. So check out that, Stephen. Darrell, I've got one here from Lindsay Gregory saying, "How would you recommend proceeding when a business partner has very different visions and values to your own?"
Oh, it's an interesting one. Yes, how do you? I think you're going to have a conversation. I think that's the hardest thing. You're going to have to. First of all, you need to ask yourself: can you live with yourself doing this for the next 5 years? That's the question you've got to ask. If you can, then it's worth having that conversation. If you can't, you might have to have that difficult conversation. But don't quit or walk the job now. Just start saying, well, if I was to do that, what would that look like? And start planning accordingly, and then have the conversation. But ultimately, transparency and conversations help people plan. That person may not even be aware of some of their decision making. And I think sometimes we make a lot of assumptions, and the best thing to do is have a lot of conversations. So I think in that instance where you've got two directors that are slightly different in terms of their focus or whatever, is just have that open and honest conversation where you can see each other's point of view and viewpoint, and explain where you want to head. Listen, you can't find people that are exactly the same as you. And, in a way, thank God that we're not all exactly the same. But there may be a common way of interacting with one another and floating these ideas, because it's not now what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the next 5 to 10 years. And what's happened with lockdown is things have accelerated significantly, because more and more business owners and CEOs or whatever have been sat on their own thinking this very thing. Am I really doing what I wanted to do? Am I really living what I want to do? And that person as well might be thinking exactly the same and doesn't know how to have that conversation with you. And what I've learned is the most difficult conversations, although they're difficult to start off with, can produce some of the most amazing breakthroughs, because all of a sudden you realize that A, you were both thinking the same thing, or A, you're happy that maybe we want to transition and go and do new things.
Thank you, Darrell. And I think sort of similar to that question, I've had one come through that says, from the point of view of a charity, how do we engage at a governance level? So we've got trustees that are pretty much vacant, but as a charity, we need them to be our ambassadors, but they don't engage at all. How do you get them sort of on board from almost a bottom up point of view?
Well, some of the stuff I've done today, communicating the original mission, vision, and values of why you exist. I mean, a charity will have articles of association, and that's a good checkpoint. You can ask those questions and say, look, this is what we were set up for. Are we actually doing that? And as trustees, communicate, what their responsibilities are. The other thing is, I know it's difficult, but you might extend the trustee book and bring some other experts in that can enable you to be successful in those areas. You might bring an expert of education on your trustee board. You might bring an expert in marketing on your trustee board. That means you can't use their services paid for, but what you can do is you can glean their advice and wisdom to open it up to the circle. I would also say that your trustee board, make sure it's diverse, and particularly around age, because you'll find some of these trustee boards, we've got people 25 years older than us that have got a completely different view on life as well. So make sure that trustee board is diverse in terms of age, and that might be a good way of bringing in fresh blood, fresh ideas when you bring in new people. So if you've got 3 trustees, swell it to an odd number, obviously, because it's got to be voted, but swell it with younger people with fresh ideas as well, because ultimately those trustees, really, you should be mixing your trustee board up every 5 years. I was speaking to a guy that's a professional chair, and he said trustees, they should be swapped around, changed at least every 5 years.
Brilliant, thank you. And I can speak from my own personal experience as being a chair of a charity as well, that often your trustee board will be fit for purpose for your ambitions for a certain period of time, but as you continue to grow and develop, the expertise that you need changes and develops and gets more complex, and therefore the board that you had may not always be the right people. So making sure you've got the right people on the bus at the right time, and having a very sort of genuine conversation was how we address that with our trustees. Just essentially saying, is this the way we want to go? Is this a journey you still want to be a part of? And what value do you think you can bring to the board? And if there was non-congruence in terms of values, but also they didn't think they could add any sort of tangible value to the board and the charity, we sort of politely encourage them to exit stage left, thank them for their contribution, and then also extend the offer that they become a friend of the board, so they're not formally bound by the rules and regulations of the trustee.
Yeah.
And that went really smoothly. We've done that on several occasions.
Yeah, when you could be as bold as putting it in your articles and associations that we will change the trustee board every 3 years. Therefore, you're forcing that conversation. You're forcing that conversation on a regular basis. And I had one on my team, and I'd worked with them for many years within the charity, and they come and said they were leaving. And I was like, oh great, I was quite upset about it. And I remember talking to one of the accelerator mentors, and they turned around and said to me, how long have they worked with you? And I said, well, they've been with me for 5 years. And they said, well, that's pretty good. And it was just like, what, actually it's a healthy perspective to have. Some people are going to be in your whole story right to the end. Some people are going to be in some chapters or some volumes for a season. Some people are only going to be in there for a paragraph. And it's just making sure that as much as you welcome them in, just help them leave the right way, so those relationships can show up in the future. The most amazing thing that happened to us, that individual came back to us, worked for me for another 3 years, and now me and him have gone into business together and started a software company. So sometimes exits don't always have to be ugly. They can actually be can actually predict your future or plan your future way ahead. If you think that they're good people and you really like them, you're sad to see them go. But if you keep those relationships, who knows where it might head.
Thank you, Darrell. There's been a couple of questions specifically around R&D, but I don't want to focus on that today. Sort of the purpose of today was focusing on brand and infrastructure around there. So any questions specific to research and development and more so the tax incentives rather than the principles of doing R&D and doing R&D for the purposes of genuine purposes of improving products, services, and infrastructure for your colleagues, for your people, and for your customers. If you want any advice on how about to claim that, I would speak to a specialist tax advisor around that. And I think that's there's no more questions coming through in the chat. So Eve, if you could just swap the slides back to ours, that would be grand. Thank you. I just wanted to also take this opportunity, Darrell, to say thank you very, very much for your contribution. Really great feedback coming through from the chat. I've learned loads, I've made loads of notes, and I'm looking forward to combing through the slides. Before everyone drops off, I just wanted to remind you of our program partners. This sounds like a sponsored slot. Program partners, Hiscox, the details are up there on the slide. So our insurers, so they've got business insurance. If you have got that or not, please do check out the link at hiscox.co.uk/accelerate. And you can get in touch with one of the people there. But before we go, Eve, if you could just jump onto the next slide. Please let us know your thoughts, any feedback from this session. Please just scan that code, send us your feedback. It'll be very, very quick, and we'll make sure that feedback is collated, and we'll take action on it, and we'll share any of it with Darrell as well. Darrell, I don't know if you can see the chat, but there's lots of thank yous coming through. So again, from myself and all of the attendees and the rest of my colleagues at NatWest, thank you very much. Very, very much appreciated. It's been a great session.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. As I said, you can follow me on LinkedIn. So yeah, if you want to connect with me, reach out, connect. LinkedIn is a great way of doing that. And I just highly recommend anyone that really wants to build networks or accelerate your business, find someone with an iPhone and get an invite to Clubhouse. Honestly, it's incredible as a tool. I'm not sponsored by them in any way, but I know there's a great deal of value that you will add, and you will grow your business as a result by the reach that you might have just simply by listening to different people from around the world.
Thank you, Darrell. I'm just I'll sit online for the next 5 minutes or so. I don't know if you want to too, Darrell. And if anyone has any final questions, we'll stop recording and we'll sort of open up the floor to Darrell. But to everyone else, thank you very much for attending. I've just put the details in there as well for the sessions this afternoon. And with no broken links, the access code and also the passcode are in there, and I'll copy that in again a couple of times so you can see it. Question come through here, Darrell, from Dale, saying, how do I go about finding Clubhouse?
How do you go about Clubhouse? Is actually on beta. You have to get invited. I think you can download the app, but to actually access it, you need a code. So just see if it's on, but you can only access it if you're on Apple. Other than that, honestly, just put a shout out on your Facebook or on your LinkedIn. Does anyone have a Clubhouse invite? And you will get one, because everyone that's in Clubhouse get regular invites to invite people, and that's how you grow it. You know, if you really wanted to, DM me your mobile number on LinkedIn, and I can add you on my phone. And I think at the moment I've got 4 invites. So if you're quick, go for it.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Darrell. Again, thank you everyone else. Thank you to my awesome team that have helped me this morning. Eve for sharing slides, Lucy for getting the session set up. And don't forget, we've got the 2 sessions this afternoon, turning your personal profile into an asset with Lindsay Boyd, which will be a great one. And then we've got one this afternoon, Inside Story. So how to tell a compelling narrative. So essentially taking a lot of what Darrell's taken this morning in terms of values and principles and turning that into sort of a cohesive narrative that you can share with your customers. Stephen, I'm just going to, I'll do an introduction separately to Darren. As you can see, you've got a raised hand there. So we'll wrap it up there. But thank you everyone. Thank you for your engagement, Stephen, and have a great Wednesday.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.